Why is it so hard to be successful? Actually, let's take the word success out of this period because there are so many different definitions of success. Why is it so hard just to achieve any long-term objective or outcome that you might have in your life? Something that would make you feel like your life is a success. Why is it so difficult to accomplish that? And why does basically no one follow through with it? Well, it's because your brain doesn't want you to win. You actually have to go through an active process to like rewire your mind into having that productivity and really doing nothing more than sustaining some sort of skill and competence level for a long enough period of time to get it to pop, right? So in this video, I'm going to talk about how to brainwash yourself into succeeding. I'm going to give you some tips to rewire your mind and reinvent yourself so that you are capable of pulling off a long-term goal. So the first thing that we should talk about in terms of brainwashing yourself to be successful, why would I even use such a word? Why would I use such a seemingly harsh term when it comes to what you're going to need to do to change your life? Well, there's a couple different factors getting in your way of achieving a long-term objective. The first thing you have to deal with is societal conditioning. So basically, since you were able to have memories, right, when you were a little kid, you started learning very early that there was a certain way to live, that there were rules, that things that might be ideal for you to accomplish or achieve, they were deemed risky. Everything you were taught in your life was seen through the lens of risk, fear, and safety. The school system teaches you risk, fear, and safety. School teaches you arbitrary rules and standards for living that aren't applicable to the real world. The media tries to control you with fear. The institutions use fear and marketing campaigns to help you form beliefs. And that's what, one thing I don't think people understand about themselves is how programmable they are in the first place. I've had conversations with people from all different ideologies, and one of the first things I always say is I always tell them I'm a dummy. I always tell them I don't know what I'm talking about. I always tell them that I'm trying to focus on how ignorant I am first, and they say, no, you know what you're talking about. You seem very articulate. You're talking about all these subjects. How could you say you don't know what you're talking about? Well, that's because I understand the programmability of the mind, and I understand how many beliefs aren't really even mine, right? So you have to first understand that you basically, based on a lot of different factors, whether it's where you grew up, the socioeconomic background your parents had, religious background, skin color, environmental circumstances, cultural circumstances, the country, all these things. People just grow up and they just have these beliefs, and we think these are beliefs that are innate to us, right? But they're definitely not. If you look at, Western rugged individualism, and then you have kind of Eastern communal, submissive, kind of almost low confidence kind of belief systems, we kind of adopt these narratives from where we come from. And, we have to make sure that we're not coming up with our own beliefs, because most narratives and ideas have already been formed, but figure out how to cherry pick the ones that are useful to you and understand that you have already been indoctrinated. Why do you think it is so hard to do something simple like any kind of sort of unconventional career path? You have to deal with that societal conditioning that you've learned over and over and over again from a very young age, teaching you the way life is supposed to be. And the funny thing about societal conditioning is it doesn't even help people get the outcomes they want. I've read surveys like Gallup polls that says 70 to 80% of people either tolerate or don't like their jobs. They're swimming in debt. They're doing all these things counterproductive in their life, and it's like, why would they be doing that? They do it because you are wired to conform to whatever you think your identity is. So if you look at yourself as kind of the rule follower of societal norms, risk-averse person, I'm just being realistic. If you have those implanted into your head and you don't focus on rewiring those thoughts, no wonder it's going to be difficult for you. So you have the societal narratives, and then you have another little cherry on the pie, icing on the cake, that makes it even more difficult, which I'm going to jump into right now. So you have societal conditioning, and then you have your lizard brain, the resistance, your self-doubt, imposter syndrome. Again, you have a society that was geared towards safety, and then your own mind is geared towards safety, right? Because you are basically here to have babies and create the next generation. You know, your brain doesn't really care about your self-actualization. Your brain cares about reproducing, staying alive, passing on genes, and avoiding danger, primarily, right? So it was your ancestors who were able to stay alive and avoid danger that led to you being here now. And like those are feelings of pessimism, right? And you know, it's very weird. Like, why do we feel such visceral feelings from things that don't actually scare us, right? So, you know, number one fear people have is something like public speaking. You know, why are people afraid of public speaking? A, there's that societal conditioning aspect of it. And then B, it's that fear, like particularly of social rejection. The fear that there's going to be 1,000 people in the crowd and you're going to say something stupid and they're all going to laugh at you, which in and of itself isn't actually physically dangerous. But if you've been on stage, and I have been on stage practicing for a public speech in fear, heart pounding out of my chest as if there was a lion rustling in the bushes. It was scary. When I gave my TED Talk, it was scary. I did the TED Talk about imposter syndrome, right? So it's like, how do you get over that? You get over it by finding a dual effort to combat against your societal conditioning, and then you have to fight against your lizard brain, right? So when you understand that your brain doesn't trust, or that you shouldn't trust your mind at all, you stop relying on your mind to guide your behavior. You know, that's really strange. You stop relying on your mind to guide your behavior. So basically what I mean by that is, you know, when you are attempting to do something, you know, quote unquote, getting you towards success, something most people never do, you're going to have like anxieties and doubts and trepidations about it, but you really just can't listen to them. It's really simple and cliche to say that, but you're actually going to have to do it. Like if you're scared of swimming, you know, Navy SEAL training, they just push you in the water, right? You have to get past that anxiety trigger and those feelings of self-doubt and just start doing the work. And, you know, the theme of my channel, I basically mentioned this probably in every single video, is the concept of feedback loops and momentum. How do you build a new identity? You gradually insert little bits of proof into your mind that you deserve to have a new identity. You're out of shape. Your identity is an out of shape person. When you go to the gym once, you put proof into your mind, one single kind of data point that you are now someone who works out. You do it 2 times, you create another data point that you are someone who works out. You do this every day for 5 years in a row, and you have removed all the pieces of your old identity and actually replaced them. So this is something that you know, but too many people get focused on each individual data point, each little instance, and you got to understand that this is a long-term process. So when it came to figuring out what I wanted to do with writing, I didn't predict how long it was going to take exactly, but I knew it was going to take years, and it took about 5 years. You know, still to this day, you know, the YouTube channel, it's doing okay. Promoting it on social media, it's doing okay. But I've already kind of committed 5 years to my life in getting this media stuff right, because I know it's really not going to be any individual video that's going to make me more confident as a video creator. Like if you've been following my channel from the beginning, you know, in my first video, I was talking slower. I wasn't using hand gestures as much. Like the charisma didn't come across on the camera. The camera itself was of lower quality. The lighting was bad, right? So I didn't have that identity of a YouTube superstar when I was sitting there shooting my first video with my webcam up in my apartment. Then I transitioned into doing more and more videos, adding little bits of nuance, getting better equipment, and this is the gradual process where you use the kind of action and data points and feedback loops to rewire your mind. But then there is another component which thankfully you're already doing right now that really seals the deal and helps move you forward in a new direction. So the main component of this, aside from taking the steps of whatever you're doing, starting the business, doing the routine, creating the goal, whatever, you want to just bathe your mind in as much positive information as you possibly can. This is why I constantly talk about avoiding watching the news. As of the date of this video, with everything going on, it's been difficult for me to do that. But I've noticed every time I dive into all that negativity, it just doesn't produce anything good. So instead, you want to be putting yourself in a position where you are putting positive thoughts into your mind and putting as many reinforcement mechanisms in your mind as possible. So for me, I'm focusing on programming myself. So the kind of videos I listen to, videos I watch, the kind of podcasts I listen to, the kind of books I read, even so far as like making sure not to like listen to angry music when I'm working out. I'll use kind of more upbeat, positive, kind of more poppy music when I'm working out. I'm making sure that I'm putting the right inputs into my mind. I don't spend a ton of time watching Netflix and pop culture. Sometimes I'll watch movies and I'll watch kind of older movies that were kind of non-PC and talked about human nature. I'll read old books, get old wisdom, see that other people were going through similar kind of problems as me and kind of use that as inspiration. And I just try to figure out as many data points as possible to put into my mind that says, hey, like this is something that you can do. So like for me, even the YouTube channel, I was going real hard at it, and then there was kind of a little bit of a plateau, and now I'm going to start going real heavily back into the channel. And one of the things that's been helpful for me is to go back and look at some of the channels that are now extremely popular. For example, Joe Rogan, unless you're living under a rock, you know who Joe Rogan is, just signed a $100 million deal with Spotify, right? I went and looked at the JRE episode 1. The Joe Rogan Experience episode 1. I couldn't get through it. Like part of it, he was sitting on his phone, like texting someone. He was like looking over his shoulder, talking to his buddy. Like it was not good. But now he is basically, a master interviewer, a master conversationalist. He's really like the great talk show host of our era, right? And how did he do that? Insane levels of practice. This guy has been doing 3-hour-long episodes for 10 years. Of course he's a master conversationalist. So when I look at the gap between where he was and where he is now, I'm not saying that I would ever become somebody of that caliber, but I see how much that I can get out of myself if I put in that level of work. And again, it's like, how do you do that level of work? It's like, yes, I know hard work matters. I know positive focus matters. I know finding the right kind of content, inspirational content matters, but I'm stuck. What do? I can't find momentum. I can't do it. I feel scared. And to be honest with you, there isn't necessarily gonna be like this secret sauce magical moment that happens. I don't ever want to be someone who promises that will happen, because if you look at the evidence, for the most part, it doesn't happen. I can only kind of tell you what I've experienced. One of the main things that has always helped me was, finding things that I took to relatively quickly. So I took to writing quickly enough. My videos weren't great, but I kind of just like running my mouth talking on camera. So it wasn't like difficult. So you want to make sure that you want to find something that it's hard, but it's not difficult. You want to find something hard, but not difficult. Hard is going to be something that requires just time. It's just a matter of time for you to get better at it. Difficult is when you kind of really don't have the capacity to do something. So for me, like I keep myself organized enough, but I don't have the capacity to be detailed enough to be like a lawyer or a surgeon or an accountant or someone who has to be like very exact and precise. It's not really my thing, so I avoid things like that. I move into lanes where my strengths are. So kind of free association, talking, writing, those are my things. And then along the way, I grew more confident over time by like hitting different phases in my career. You know, like for the first 3 or 4 years, I essentially kind of, while I was like learning things and implementing in my life and teaching kind of other people about it, I was still learning from people at a higher level than me and like soaking that information into my mind and absorbing it over and 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 over again, you know. And then, you know, and if I had an especially bad day where I wasn't feeling motivated, you know, I would cut on one of those, you know, montages with the Rocky theme and the pep talk. Yeah, like, you know, those were a little fluffy, but, you know, in dire times, you know, they required desperate measures, right? So I did anything that I had to do. And really, it was getting to kind of that inflection point where I knew I had a serious shot at making things work is when I really dove in and tried to stay laser focused. And that's what will happen for you if you're able to reach that tipping point. But the main message of the lesson is that, you know, in terms of like how hard it's going to be and you're looking forward to the future and how much it's going to take, think of how much time you spent being conditioned in the first place. So, you know, if you're 30 years old like I am, you know, basically that's, you know, multiple decades, you know, since adolescence of you being taught this narrative about life. It's going to take you some time to rewire that. You know, you've made decisions, you've made financial decisions, behavioral decisions, decisions in your relationship, your network, your circumstances that have led to where you are today. It's going to take time to redo that situation. You know, 5 years ago, you know, I moved into my new apartment with $53, no money, had to go get a job, $7 an hour, $10 an hour. Didn't know what I was going to do with my life. Dropped out of school, arrested, all that stuff. It wasn't going to change just because, oh, IO's better now, I'm going to change my life. It's like, no, the universe has to take some time to catch up. And if you do give the universe a little bit of time, it will. Okay, the next thing I wanted you to do is go down into that description and grab your copy of Real Help, an honest guide to self-improvement. This is going to give you the brutally honest life advice you need to change. So please check that out. Next thing you should do is go into the description below and you'll see a link for the ultimate guide to finding your talents and strengths. It'll teach you profitable skills that you can use to start your own side business, project, or long-term objective. Lastly, make sure to smash that like button. Give me a thumbs up if you liked the video. Leave a comment. Give me your 2 cents. Make sure you are subscribed to the channel and you have that little notification bell tap so you can get brand new videos when they come out. There should be a couple videos popping up in front of your face right now. Please check those out, and I will see you on the next video.